You know, some people just give up. And they try the same thing, not because they understand, but because they're just pathetic. Some people give up because they understand. And that's a good way of giving up. You know, it's like, I don't know if you know who Mike Tyson is. Yeah. You know, when he was 18, 19, 20, no one could be in the ring with him for more than a minute. I think when you find yourself in the ring with Mike Tyson, you walk in there with a humongous ego. It doesn't mean that you don't fear him. Maybe it's in the background. But as a boxer, in a competitive sport, you try to keep fear way back, because then it can lead to paralysis and he looks at you fall. There comes a point after a few punches, maybe you kind of get knocked down a couple times, you realize that he's just like Samson. He's like a Godzilla and you're like a mouse. You understand that you have no chance to even go another round. Forget another round. You have no chance to go another minute. You just stay down. That's a good understanding. You know, some people are just idiots. They get up and they fight. They get knocked out and they end up in the hospital. So, eventually everyone will get it. Anyone else? No one? Really?
How much time do you?
I don't know. What time is it?
The clock is wrong.
It's an hour behind?
Yeah.
So it's 8? Okay, so we have 2 hours. We can't talk about Gilgamesh just yet. So let me just put some more things up here. Do you have any questions before we do another mapping on the board?
Have you always written like that?
Yeah.
Always?
I never use the board, but it's the same way. You can't read my writing?
No, it's just because I used to have like the same writing when I was like younger, and I hated it, so I changed it.
Yeah, see, I don't give a shit.
But I don't know.
Thank you. Let me once again just repeat what I shared with you last night. Do not take these ideas home. Do not think about them. Do not feel about them. Do not take notes on them.
What place in life to be in order to take these things home and so outside of yourself?
Your question is really good. It's missing some major components. Can I tell them to you? There was a psychologist not too long ago. He's dead now, Abraham Maslow. He was a loner. He was depressed most of his life. And most introverts, melancholic people have really great senses of humor. He came up with a system which I think is really, really good. So for those of you in this class who perhaps enjoy these ideas, there are, like anything else in life, there are some prerequisites. If, for example, you're a young woman and you want to date someone and you're about like 25 or so, you don't really have much time, because around the age 27 or 28, your body's going to scream, give me a baby. It's not even up to you. It doesn't even matter how much you may hate life, or hate children, or hate yourself, or hate men. Once this door opens, your body is going to, and your psyche is going to be screaming at you for the next 10 years until you satisfy its desire. And so you no longer care about the way someone looks. You no longer care about, I don't know, what this person drives. You want to know if they have a steady job. You want to make sure that they have a steady income. You want to make sure they don't drink, they don't smoke. And so you go into this dating, if of course you've learned your lessons well from prior relationships. You begin to ask really, really good questions. And one of the things that you need to understand is this. When you begin to know something really, really well, your circle becomes really, really small. When you know what it is that you want, you don't really have very many options out there. If you have fallen in love with philosophy, you're not going to major in math. You're not going to major in history. It is only when you're confused that options are attractive. But when you know, you remove the freedom of choice from yourself. And it's a good thing. Okay? Now, let me put your question in a relatively personal way. In other words, you come to me and you say, Amir, you knock on my door, I'm sitting in my office, and you say, I like your class, I like you, and I want to just continue coming to class and majoring in philosophy. So, the basic pillars of life. You need to have those basics: food, water, and air. I need to know that you have money to buy food. Why is that important? If you come to my office and you say, you want me to teach you a few things, I don't want your life to have lots of obstacles, because then they're going to distract you from thinking about me. So you need to have the basics. I need to know when you come to my office, your belly is full. Okay? But just having food by itself is not enough. I need to make sure that your body is healthy. So when you give it food, you're not going to be constipated. So when you're sitting in the office with me, every 5 minutes you're not going to say, I'm going to go use the restroom, I'll be right back. I want the flow to be continuous, not to be broken. Okay? You have food, which means you have some money, and you have your health. The weather can sometimes be cold, sometimes it can be very, very warm or hot. I need to make sure that there is a place that will protect your flesh. That you have a house or a shelter. The reason why I'm writing this stuff down is because I'm not 20, Joaquin. I'm not 30, not 40. In just a few days, I'll be 60. I am monogamous. If you come to my office, that's the only office you're ever going to go to. If you like my ideas, these are the only ideas you have to be around. Which means that you can't spend too much time thinking about food. You can't spend too much time going to Kaiser. And you can't spend too much time figuring out where the hell you're going to sleep tonight. I value my time and my energy. I don't want it to be wasted. Now, I also want to know if this house has turned into a home. Do you have parents? If you have parents, do you know love? Did they care for you? Spank you? Discipline you once in a while? Do you know how to respect someone who's older than you? And when you live in a home, you have no choice but to have conflicts. But you can't just look at your dad when you don't like him and say, I hate you. You bite your tongue. Do you know how to be quiet when you're in pain? That's what happens when you live amongst people. You don't just say whatever garbage that lives inside you. You keep your mouth shut. You know how to be self-restrained. Now, it doesn't mean that just in case you have come from parents who have divorced, that you have not tasted what a home life looks like and feels like, what love feels like, compromise feels like. But what it does do is that this very, very important component that you need to have, which is you just need to trust. If the world of trust has been shattered inside you, you can't have too much faith in people. And you can't even have too much faith in the way you feel about certain people that you like. You're always going to doubt. You take one step forward and 5 back. And I don't have the time for that, for you to spend 2 weeks in my office and then disappear for 5 years. It won't work like that. Now, if you have food, health, home, which comes with a good amount of things, love, compromise, and all that stuff, there comes a point where you say, I love my family, they love me too, but I want to go out there and see what else lives out there. Now, you go into society. And you go to society for many reasons, but the most important is you're now ambitious. You want to go to school. You want to get a job. You want to make money. You want to buy a car. You want to buy a house. Here you have desires for your father to like you, your mother to like you, your siblings to like you. Here, you want your friends to like you, your teachers to like you, your boss to like you, your colleagues to like you. You need to be able to play the game well. Because if you're not chewable, digestible, it doesn't matter who gives you what. Eventually you will crap all over it. Now, what's going to happen is this. There comes a point where you say, I have had enough food, delicious food. I've gone to places, spent lots of money. In and out will suffice. My health is relatively good. I have a home and I have a job. Now comes this breaking point where you say, I have all the stuff, but for some strange reason, I feel this void, this emptiness. I'm not quite sure what's wrong with me. My mom comes to my room and says, honey, you're married, you got kids, you got a great job, you got all the stuff. Why the hell don't you ever smile and be happy? Okay. Now, what you need to understand is up to this point, what you have is your physical life. Now, physical life is problematic because it does create feelings. Those feelings generate emotions. Emotions means you're connected to certain parts of this area. And whenever you have emotions, it means there is attachment. You're invested. And as long as you're invested in one of these areas, it means that this other place called self-knowledge or spiritual knowledge, you're not ready for that just yet. There is a shortcut. Let me give you what that shortcut is. Let's say you like me, and let's say I like you back. Okay? Now, you're 20, I'm 60. What's the age difference? About 40 years. What is it that people are looking for? Really? What are we looking for? We are looking for stability. We are looking for answers. We are looking for beauty. We are looking for perfection. Okay? Let's say I tell you, Joaquin, I know there's an age gap, and it feels like an ocean, not like a pond, an ocean. If you go out with a 20-year-old, both of you are changing constantly. You're changing physically, you're changing psychologically, intellectually, emotionally. There is no dependency. There is no stability. Now, you may have all these plans about your relationship, but you can't have these plans as things are shifting and changing outside, even inside of you. I'll tell you this. It is true, I'm 40 years older than you. I'll give you stability. I'm never going to change. I'm solid. You will change. You will throw your temper tantrums. I will overlook them because I know why you do it. I have money. I'll send you to school. I have a home. I'll even buy you a car. We'll go tripping together, traveling here, traveling there. I'll give you all that you want. The more you hang out with me, you will no longer be able to act like a 20-year-old. I'll force you to act like a 60-year-old man. And then I will die. And you're 25. And though you may be physically 25, intellectually and emotionally, you're 60. And your life has been put together. And the point I'm trying to make, sometimes you may not have a home and you may not be liked by society, but someone like a Socrates can like you. And this Socrates can be a home, not only to your physical life, but emotional, intellectual life. Now, if, for example, you have enjoyed some of the ideas in this class, and you go home and you say, yes, this is what I want to do, and this is what I want to be. And you come to my office, and I realize that your home life hasn't been so good. That means the following. I have to spend an extra like 6 months getting rid of the trash so that we can once again go back and focus on this. It's too much work. The other issue is that if you're up here, down here, and someone like a Socrates is up there, it's not a back and forth scenario. He gives, you receive. The other issue is this. While you are receiving, it contains a good amount of feelings and emotions. You have an intellect that wants to come down and understand what the hell is happening to you. You won't be able to. And because every time you're given something, you're inspired, it's intense, your intellect comes down to figure things out, your rationality. It won't. Doubt comes in, fear comes in, dread comes in, confusion comes in, anger comes in, and then you run away. So, it's complicated. So for those of you who desire at some point in your life to go on this quest to figure out who you are, what you are, the non-physical aspect of you, this day and age is called the spiritual part of you, make sure that you have, for the most part, done this work. If you haven't had a home, make a home. Okay? To make this work the right way, you need to make sacrifices. When you go up here, you need to know what sacrifice looks like, what it means to be passive, to compromise. Okay? Now, any questions before we continue? No? I'll put down 2 more maps and then we'll call it quits. We'll come back on Monday and we'll start with Gilgamesh. No questions?
You want to talk about the essay yet?
The what?
The essay?
Just write the essay.
No comments to it? Just read the...
Just choose 2 of the videos, whatever you like, and just write on them. Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know if you remember my question yesterday. It was about like how I don't feel hunger, right? But I've always obtained what I want through discipline, just through hard work. But sometimes it's just painful in a way, right? It's kinda like I'm doing it because I want it, but the way I want it, the way I get it is just painful to me. You know what I mean?
Okay.
And like I always obtain it, but when I get it, I'm not truly happy.
Yeah. So let me quickly do another thing and then we'll continue with the other thing. So this is Eric. Eric wants to get his bachelor's. BA. Eric. Eric with no degree. Eric with a degree. Okay. You want something you yet don't have. So now we're not going to talk about how this desire even came to you. If you want, we can. Let's just say you have a brother. You've been a loser most of your life. Your brother has not been a loser. One day you wake up and you say, I'm a loser. And my brother's a winner. And I want to be like him, a winner. So because of your brother, all of a sudden you feel a void. Okay? You want something that he has. He has a degree, you don't have a degree. And you want what he has, which means what? You have poverty. Poverty is painful. Okay? Now you want to remove poverty. How do you remove this poverty? By going to school and getting this degree. Now, this is a 4-year process. Now, before you can even make this journey, remember what we said. You have a desire. You need to feel shitty enough about yourself where you want a degree. You need to feel even more shitty about yourself where you need a degree. So your father can like you more. So when your brother talks to you, he knows that you're worth something. Okay? Now, when you have a need, it's fulfilled 4 years from now. You go on this quest. Now, while you're journeying, you're governed by hope, dreams. When I get my BA, my father will like me. When I get my BA, I'll quit Home Depot and get a job at Google. When I get my degree, instead of making $20 an hour, I'll make $200 an hour. All this journey is governed by hope. And hope means you have these narratives, these stories that live inside your head. If I go with Brad Pitt, I'll be loved. Everything in life revolves around hope. She went out with someone because of hope. Now, one of the things you need to understand about dreams is that eventually you have to wake up. Now, in this case, how do you wake up? Now, remember, as long as you are journeying, you have meaning. You have a goal. You have a purpose. And as long as these 3 components, meaning, goal, and purpose, are alive, you will continue. They nourish you, sustain you. Now comes July 27th. This is the only class you need to get your PhD. You go home. You wait for the grade to come your way. You're filled with anticipation, anxiety. Are you passing? Are you failing? What's the story? It's an A. The chair of the department sends you an email. Congratulations, Eric. You've earned a PhD. All this passion, it all goes away the moment you've received this email. Okay, there are no more classes to take, no more chairs to sit in, no more books to read, no more essays to write. The hell do I do now? When you reach your destination, satisfaction comes in. With satisfaction, now remember, once you get to this place, the goal, so what you do is you journey in towards something. You're journeying towards your BA. You get the BA. For about 2 hours, instead of journeying towards BA, you journey inside the world of BA. Yes, I've done it. You show your diploma to your mom, to your dad. You feel great. And you even have the BA journeying through you. Look at me, you say to people. Now, once you're saturated, you're satisfied, all of a sudden you realize you're inspired no more. You're passionate no more. It's like this intensity that lived inside you, all of a sudden vanished. Now, you get bored. Now you say, really, I did all this work to get to this place. Now, what used to give meaning no longer does. In boredom, you're frustrated, you're disillusioned, you feel betrayed. That's all of life. If you understand this, Next time you get into a relationship, any kind of a relationship, you know how it's going to end. It's not about getting a PhD or a BA or any of that stuff. Buy a car, you'll get there. You'll be bored. Find yourself a man or a woman. In the end, you'll get bored. All of life, as long as there is goal, purpose, meaning, you're fine. The moment, see, one of the things about dissatisfaction is this. When you're engaged, you don't think. You're one with the object of engagement. When there is a separation or a gap, here is Eric standing, looking at this Eric who has gone through 4 years of school, and this new Eric with a degree says, why? Now this Eric becomes disappointed in this Eric who has spent 4 years wasting to get a piece of paper. Replace a diploma with any engagement in life, and it will come to this wisdom that the Buddha talked about. All of life is suffering. Or you get to this wisdom that Jesus talked about. Do not store your treasures down here. You invest time, youth, energy into things that will eventually make you dissatisfied. Yeah.
Is it hope or is it fear? Or is it two sides of the same coin?
There's always this fear of not being able to accomplish. So you work more, you sacrifice more, you spend more. But the end result is the same. And going back to Joaquin's question, coming to accept this is very, very difficult. Because whenever you walk into a relationship, you're talking about walking into a relationship knowing the birth and the death of the relationship, living side by side. You love this man, you love this woman. You know that this love is temporary. In 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, maybe a year, it'll just all be politics. Honey, the garbage. Honey, milk. Honey, I hate you. Honey, I want out. Honey, I love you. It's cyclical. Yeah.
Could you talk about, well, I have like two separate things. When Buddhists talk about abandoning hope, and
The who talks about?
Buddhists, abandoning hope, and then also letting go of attachment, not attachment. Can you talk about this?
Yes. I don't like Buddhists. And I'll tell you why. And I don't like Christians. I don't like Muslims or Jews. You know, I don't like philosophers. Because what usually happens is you're either enculturated, in other words, your parents tell you who you are, what you should think, how you should be, or you read some books on your own and you just become what you read. One of the things you need to understand about not Buddhism but the Buddha is the following. The Buddha, Siddhartha, it's a Sanskrit name which means someone who had a lot of desires, physical desires, like those desires. Your name, metaphorically, is Siddhartha. You want a degree. You want a companion. You want power in your physical life. You are Siddhartha, as I am. You want to be liked by stupid people. All of us do. Now, Siddhartha had money, so that was a non-issue for him. Siddhartha also had parents whom he loved. How old are you? You have loved. So you know what sort of attachment love creates. He was also married. He also had a son. He was a father. He also lived some 3,000 years ago. No one knows what divorce is. No one knows what a spiritual quest is. No one knows what it means to abandon your family. When you talk about Buddhists, especially the Buddhist monks you see around campus sometimes, or you walk Berkeley, these are people who never had parents, and if they had parents, they were never with their parents for too long, they were never married, they never had kids. Okay? So if they had any desires inside them, they had to crush those desires in an unhealthy way. The Buddha had to overcome his culture. He had to overcome loving his parents. He had to overcome walking away from his parents. He had to overcome walking away from his newborn, from his wife, in a culture that does not allow those things to take place. You know, it's Aristotle, the Greek philosopher, has this idea about why people choose to be alone. If you've been in 5 or 6 or 7 relationships and you weren't able to keep any of them, there comes a point where you say, you do what the fabulist Aesop would say, you play the sour grapes game. For those of you who don't know, there's this fox, loves grapes, is passing by this house, sees grapes, sticks his hand through this fence. For 3 hours he tries, and remember fox, they're cunning, they're clever, they're insightful. But with all of his cleverness, he's unable to get any grapes. Eventually he walks away in disgust, and he says, they're probably sour. Maybe gods knew that they're sour. That's why they gave me short hands. So after 5 or 6 or 7 failed relationships, you say, I'm just not meant for this. People suck. I know what I'm doing. It's my companions who are losers. So you live your life alone. Not because you're self-sufficient, but because you just don't know how to be in a relationship. Being alone for you is poisonous, but you don't know any other way. You're far too toxic for anyone to be around you. But there is another way of being alone, according to Aristotle. You've tried relationships, and what you've discovered is this. You go somewhere, you like someone, that liking inspires you, you pursue them, you exchange numbers, you go out with them, you like them even more, history is created, emotional entanglement comes to be placed. Then you create this historical narrative, get married, do this, do that. Then after a while, things fizzle out. If all things end this way, why allow myself to find meaning in things on the outside? Allow me to be self-sufficient. I will have friends. If they don't want to call me, I'll be fine. I have my brain. I will sit and will write poetry. Your creativity become your companion. Now that is a good aloneness. See, when you talk about the Buddhists and the idea of attachment, you're talking about people who really never were able to love anything. They had nothing to struggle, to overcome. They were just raised in a culture. You know, it's like in the medieval age, what used to happen is parents used to give one of their kids, mostly a son, to the monastic tradition. The son would go into a monastery and become a monk. Why? Because Abraham sacrificed his son. But when you look at the Middle Ages, you will discover that there was great poverty. there was lack of food, and people usually had 3, 4, 5, 6 kids. Too many mouths to feed. When you look at the life of Abraham, Abraham was 90. He longed to have a child. Eventually, he did have a son. He loved his son. But God demanded something so weird. Do you love me or do you love your son? What the hell do you do with that? Abraham says, okay, I love God more than my son. And God says, prove it. How do you prove it? Get a knife, slit his throat. Now that is attachment that you have to overcome. So when you speak about the Buddha and being detached, let me just quickly say this so we can talk about Gilgamesh when we come back. Iron. This is a stage in which we live. Metaphorically, symbolically, it refers to the genitalia. It is this pleasure-seeking area. It doesn't have the capacity to wait. It wants something and it wants it now. Okay? Now, there comes a point where you grow tired of simply smoking, drinking, having fun with your buddies, going to parties. How it happens, I don't really know. Okay? But at a certain point, you say, I am tired of these cheap pleasures. You graduate to bronze, where you say, you know what? I want to go to school. I want pleasure, but I want a different kind of pleasure. So if the pleasures you would have in the iron stage, the longevity, the lifetime is about 2 weeks, you say, I want to go to school and I want to make money. This pleasure, hopes and dreams contained in it, will last for about 2 years. You're selfish here and you're selfish here. It's about you. You want to make money. You want to go to school. You want to get a job. You want to buy a house. Then there comes a point, maybe you're 30, maybe you're 35. You say to yourself, you know, I used to drink, it was fun, but no longer. I used to go out there, you know, work like 50 hours a day, make lots of money, buy a house. I have all of that. But I go inside my house, it's not yet a home. I feel alone. I want a companion. For the first time in your life, you move into the silver age or stage where you say, I am willing to sacrifice time, money, energy towards finding a companion, having a family. Now this is almost a lifelong set of pleasures. Having children, suffer because you got kids. What's going to happen to the future? They'll keep you intellectually and emotionally occupied for the rest of your life. And if you're lucky, they won't send you to a nursing home. Okay? Now, there comes a point where you say, I have done this, I have done this, and I have done this. At a certain point, you find yourself no longer interested. That lack of interest detaches you from the contents. You move up to here. The degree is important. Money is important. There comes a point, detachment comes naturally. Then you come here. Now, the problem with the silver stage is that you are emotionally entangled with taking care of your parents, taking care of your kids. And then one morning, perhaps you wake up and you say, they're good, I like them. They're just not enough. The silver, bronze, and iron are your physical life. When you say none of these areas give my life any meaning anymore, now you're going into the gold stage. You're looking for something that appeals to your soul. You can't see it. You can't touch it. You can only intuit it. You can only feel it. But this gold can come to you in two ways. When you've accomplished everything and you come to realize it's all been a mirage, or you run into a Jesus Christ, or you run into a Socrates, or you run into some fellow, whether a man or a woman, who makes you feel a certain way, who makes drinking and smoking irrelevant, insignificant, meaningless for you, who makes you feel as if just going to school to make money to get a degree, it's a cheap way of existing. Makes you feel as if, yes, you do have a companion, but something about you has changed, has shifted. You want to go home and talk to your companion about certain things, but he has ears that don't hear. Okay? I think this is all good for the second night. We'll come back on Monday. We have another 5 weeks to cover a good amount of territory. So remember, go home and drink and smoke and have fun and don't think about any of this stuff. It's bad for your health. Do you have any questions before we go? Anyone?